Right, Rabbi Sai, we're learning Hilchos Firas Omer, where this is the third shir. We'll be starting from page 188, Siman Tov Pei Tes, in the middle of Seif Aleph. Says the Shulchan Aruch, Ketzad, how does a person count the Omer? Says the Shulchan Aruch, B'yom Rishon on the first day, he says, Hayom Yom Echad Ba'omer. Today is the first day of the Omer. Ad she'agia the Shiva Yomim, until he reaches 7 days. And then he says, Hayom Shiva Yomim, Shehem Shavua Echad. Today is 7 days, which is 1 week, Ba'omer of the Omer. V'yom Shmini, on the 8th day, Omer, he says, Hayom Shmoina Yomim. Today is 8 days, Shehem Shavua Echad, which is 1 week, V'yom Echad, and 1 day, Ba'omer. Similarly to reaches the 14th Yom, he says, Hayom Arba'asa Yomim. Today is the 14 days, which is really Arba'asa Yom. Shem Shnei Shavuos Ba'omer, which is 2 weeks of the Omer. Al Derech Zeh Moed B'Hoilech, and they continued, he counts like this, Ad Mem Tes Yom, until 49 days. So we said already yesterday that the word Ba'omer, some people say La'omer, some people say Ba'omer. Mishbrus of Cotton Ches said if a person didn't say that word at all, he would still be Yoitza. In Sivkot Zayin, we explain there's 2 chiyuvim. There's a chiyuv to mention the days, and there's a chiyuv to mention the weeks. The chiyuv to mention the days because it says Tisperu Mishim Yom, you should count 50 days. And also there's a chiyuv to mention the weeks because it says Shiva Shavuos Tisperoch, you should count 7 weeks. And the Mishnah Berurah says if a person counted the days and didn't count the weeks, he is Yoitze. If a person counted the weeks and didn't count the days, he says, for example, Hayom Shavua Echad on the 7th day, or Hayom Shnei Shavuos on the 14th day, then he is not Yoitze. Because at that point, in those particular days, day 7, day 14, day 21, by just mentioning the weeks, you've not at all pointed out the days. We'll see in Mishnah Berurah now, Be'ez Hashem Simchat Tes, what happens if a person counts on day 8 or 9, he just mentions the weeks, meaning he says on day 8, today is 1 week and 1 day, if that's considered a sphere, and we'll see that it actually is. Simchat Tes. Of Yom HaShmini, on the 8th day, Yoma, he says, today is 8 days, Hayom Shmoni Yom, Shehem Shavua Echad, which is 1 week and 1 day. Which If a person only said today is 8 days, but I see him without concluding Shehem Shavua Echad, which is 1 week and 1 day. Nambi Yotza his Yaitza. Shari his case Shavuos Esmo B'Yom HaShvi. The Shavuos has already been mentioned the day before on day 7, and that's good enough. Even if he just says today is 1 week and 1 day. The chud without Nami Yotz is also mentioned. You've mentioned already the days each day as it comes. So you know already 1 week is 1 week and 1 day, and 1 week and 1 day is also including the days. That's right. Oimim Shavua Echad. 1 second. So the Mishnah Berurah is telling us if on the 8th day a person just said today is 8 days, or on the 8th day a person said today is 1 week and 1 day, he is Yaitza. But as we saw the previous year, if it was on day 7 or day 14 or day 21, and he only mentioned the weeks, he said today is 1 week. If it was day 7 or it was day 14, he says today is 2 weeks of the Omer, etc. He would not be Yaitza because he hasn't had a sphere of days at all. A person says what should say Shavua Echad. Today is 1 week, which is in the masculine rather than the feminine. Shnei Shavua is 2 weeks rather than Shtei Shavua. To Shavua Lashon Zachar, it's a masculine term, and therefore it's Echad, and it is Shnei, etc. Ad Asar Yomim, till 10, one says Yomim, days, in the plural, and from that point on, one says Yom. Yeah. And therefore the Shulchan Aruch, although it writes Hayom Arba'asa Yomim, it should really say Arba'asa Yom. Kain Yeshlem Abaminian Hamiyot Chila, one always starts with the smaller number. For example, on the 14th day, one says Hayom Arba'asa Yom, Shehem Shnei Shavuos, etc. Always starting with Arba'asa, Achad Asa, Achad V'Esrim. It's always when one mentions the number, one mentions always the smaller number first, Achad Asa, or Shloisha, or Shloishim, or Arba'im, etc. All these things do not change the fulfillment of the mitzvah, just to improve the expression and to make it, to say it in the most correct, ideal way. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sivkot Yud, and in this way one continues to count throughout the Omer, Sivkot Yud. There's a custom to say Achasfira after counting Yiratzon Sheibana Beis Hamikdash. We daven the Beis Hamikdash should be rebuilt. That means to say, but also the Kaim mitzvahs have also Omer, and then we'll be able to fulfill the mitzvah and to bring the carbon Omer. Yesh Nagin, and some say also Gam Ken Mizmar Ekimu Chanein Devarachenu. This Mizmar, which has got 49 words in it, with the exclusion of the first pasuk, says the Avudraham in Dirshu number 37. Obviously, 49. It's also got 7 pasukim, which obviously has a significance with regards to the Omer. Right, the Mishnah Berurah continues in Sivkot Yud Aleph. Zeh Moine v'hoilech ad Yud Memtes Yoim. Kos v'achroinim v'achroinim say, if a person says it in a different way, could go in, for example, b'yom lametes on the 39th of the Omer, a person says, hayim arboim chos achas, today is 40 minus 1. Nami Yotza is also Yotza with this. Now, if you take a look at the Bihalacha, first of all, Moine v'hoilech, the Bihalacha is an interesting point. He brings the Achronim to discuss what is the din if a person says today is Beis La'omer. Now, Beis obviously means 2. Is it Yotza? There's a discussion about this. He brings the Machlokes about whether one is Yotza, and he says, since most poskim hold that nowadays Sfira is only Drabanon, one wouldn't say again that one would not be machmir to make another count, and you can just count again without a bracha. The Shulchan Aruch Mishnah Berurah also discuss if somebody says a bracha without verbalizing it, just mentally says a bracha, which the poskim say it doesn't mean he made the bracha mentally. It means he counted mentally without actually verbalizing it. The halacha says one is not yotze because hirur is not considered speaking, thinking about something is not considered as saying it. So here we need actually to say the words, and he says the Bri Chodosh says this clearly. And although the Vilna Gaon holds one must make Berachas HaTorah even if a person just thinks about learning, the halacha says that's not because he holds Hirur Kedibur Domi, as Dusha pointed out in 43, but rather it's because the fulfillment of the mitzvah of learning Torah can be done even by thinking, according to his opinion, at least because the possibility person involves himself in learning, even if he's not saying it, he's thinking about it and considered involvement, and that involvement also the obligation to recite Berachas HaTorah. So there's a discussion also here with regards to writing. Would you say a person who writes the Omer, if it also is considered as if he's said the Omer? And that is the Aruch HaShulchan they bring here says that if one counts the Omer by writing, he's not at all fulfilled the mitzvah. Even if he's mechaven the mitzvah, he has to count again with a bracha. The Dirshu note also discussed here if a person says, for example, on the 19th, he says today is the 20th minus 1. He brings from the beginning, Kiva brings from the Shayla and Shuvas Prio 8, the one is also Yotza with this. Because at the end of the day, were mentioned in the number of the day. It doesn't have to be said out in the expression as we will normally do so. But somebody who says today is the last day of the Omer, which from Zalma says that he would not fulfill the mitzvah because he's not at all mentioned the number of the day, he just said the day in relation to the other days. Rabbi Yashav says that also somebody who says today is after the Omer, or he says today is 5 days before the last day, is not Yotze because he's only mentioned how many days are left, but he hasn't actually mentioned which day it is. There's no number of the actual day. He just caught it and latched it on to the last day of the Omer. Yeah. Chazon Ish says somebody who says today is the first day of Yom Yom Rishon without saying Yom Yom Echad Omer. Chazon Ish is not Yotze because Rishon only has a connotation of beginning, but doesn't necessarily have a connotation of first. We need to say today is the first day of the Omer. Interesting questions. Says the Shulchan Aruch Sif Beis. Now this Sif Beis is the Tshuvas HaRashba, a question which the Rashba addresses in his Tshuvah Sefer. And it's interesting, there's a similar connected Gemara in Brachos, Daf Chav Zayin, Daf Chav Vav, around there. The Chav Zayin, I think it is, maybe Chav Zayin on base. The Gemara discusses there a group of people who on Friday, they thought it was dark. They saw it was getting dark. They thought it was time to daven Mariv. They daven Mariv, and then they realized, Gaval, it was too early. It was too early to daven Mariv. And the question is if they have to daven again. And a similar question here is said with regard to Sfiras Omer, that there was somebody, or that he was davening, he thought it was time to count the Omer, he thought it was Nacht, nightfall, which is the correct time to count the Omer. And then it cleared up, the weather cleared up, and it became light again. He realized that he had counted early. Now the Shulchan Aruch, the way we're going to explain it, the Shatzian points this out, says he still counted after Plag HaMincha, but just it wasn't counted after Nacht. So really we have to explain the various stages of a Jewish day. Nacht is obviously nightfall, which is the last point of day. From nightfall for sure, it's considered a permitted time to recite the Omen, to fulfill all mitzvahs halayla. Before that, there's a twilight period from Shkia, it's called Bein Hashmoshes, the twilight period, which is a questionable nighttime period. And earlier than that is Plag HaMincha, which is an hour and a quarter before, either before, as well as exactly what it's an hour and a quarter before is also not clear, either an hour and a quarter before Shkia or an hour and a quarter before Nacht, before nightfall. But the point of it is it's an earlier time before Shkia. Now, as we said, ideally one should wait till Tzeitzei Kichavim, till nightfall to fulfill the mitzvah Omer. One could fulfill it also from Shkia if one needs to. We'll discuss more about that tomorrow. But to say it from Plag is a big P'ti Eved, as discussed also in the Bialocha tomorrow, although there were Kehillas that they did count Omer from Plag because they davened after Mariv, and since for Mariv purposes one can daven after Plag, so therefore also for Omer, there were those who relied on Plag, the earlier time of Plag HaMincha, as I said, an hour and a half earlier than these later times. So that would be an hour and a quarter, sorry. That could also be considered a Sephira. But generally speaking, the person would want to fulfill his mitzvah with Nacht. And the Shulchan Aruch therefore says, in Torah, if a person made a mistake, on a cloudy day, made a bracha on the Omer, they thought it was already nightfall, and then realized, oh no, it wasn't nightfall, it wasn't even Shkia, it was actually only Plag, which is the earliest time to say Sfira, and Mechaber actually doesn't even mention Plag being a valid time to say Sfira, but from the Shatzian, it seems, it's assuming that is, but the evidence would be considered a good time, a valid time, but nevertheless, since this person would never wanted to fulfill a mitzvah so early, the din is he has to count again when it is fully night. In fact, in those in particular, they always only count after nightfall. But allows us that's the correct thing to do. Although one could fulfill the mitzvah from Shkia, which is sunset, between sunset and nightfall, as you mentioned, is in Hashmoshes. And Medaktikin, those who are careful, only count after Tzeitzei Kichavim. This fellow thought it was Tzeitzei Kichavim, he counted, and then he realized it was actually just after Plag, and we tell him he should count again with a bracha. That's how the Mishnah Berurah learns the Sif. Let's take a look at the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Yud Beis. Chayzvin, he counts again. This comes from a question asked to Rashba B'Tshuva, Sivan Kufnadadin, on his response. Mavosham is talking there. Shakol is Palugam Mariv Koidim. They daven Mariv early. Well, the Indian Mariv, with regards to Mariv, the fact they daven Mariv early, they didn't think it. They thought it was dark already. Ein lehem lachsa dispala. We don't say they have to daven again, which because we say it's difficult to bring the people together to obligate the whole community to come back. Daven Mariv at the time they normally daven is unnecessary. We wouldn't make them do that. We will assume therefore that they can be yotza from the Mariv daven after Plag. Similar to the question discussed in Hilchos Shabbos and in Maseches Brachos. In Sfira, with regards to Sfira, we're not interested in the bother. Because, for example, how could he have said the day, Yom, today is 10 days, it's only 9 days. Until it's actually nightfall, how can his words to say, how can he say it's the 10th day of the Omer if it's really only 9th? Now this is interesting really, because the truth of the matter is, it is after Plag, and we'll see it later on the second page. After Plag, one can sort of be Yotza Omer if necessary, if push to come to shove. There's the Yesh Meg in Lahoko, but this doesn't. It's interesting because it doesn't. The way the Mishnah Berurah brings it, at least, is that on this point is that how can you be Yotze? You said completely the wrong day. You said completely the wrong day. It's interesting because with regard to Mariv, we say, well, because of Tircha to Tzibura, because of the bother getting everyone to come back, they would be Yotze, and they don't come back. With regard, however, to Sfiras Omer, so now is the Rashba says, 1 second, how can you call it day 10 if it's really only still day 9? Anyway, the point is that this person who counts early, because he thought it was dark, has to count again. Sivkotan Yud Gimel, Bebracha Kadin, he has to make a bracha on it as well. Says the Mishnah Brura Sivkotan Yud Daled. Hamadaktikin, those who are careful, they only count after nightfall. They wouldn't even count at the point of Bein Hash Moshes during the twilight period between Shkia and Nacht. Sivkotan Yud Daled. That means really one could count from sunset. Although it's before nightfall. Since Sfira is only Rabbanon, we could be lenient and count Sfira for the following day already from sunset. Yeah. The Sfira is sunset, yeah. And we come welcome. Nevertheless, one doesn't bring himself into a point of doubt. Therefore, those are careful of what they do in the mitzvahs. They wait until it's nightfall. When for sure it's night, and they only count the omer when it is absolute night. That's the correct thing to do. That means the chatchil ideally. We come welcome. Nevertheless, but the ever ex post facto, if it happened to be if a person did a bracha bin hashmoshes on the omer during bin hashmoshes period, so he is yotze. Wow, the Rabbi says that person, if he counted early, he should. He counted from Ben Hashmoshes from Shkia, from sunset. He should actually count again after night, albeit without a bracha, to make sure he counts at the right time. Shatzin explains that the Rabbi holds that the Sfira is min haTorah, is choishish, at least that the Sfira is min haTorah, and therefore one should only fulfill the mitzvah min haTorah when it is actual nightfall. So, the Kitzur, what we've seen today is as follows. We concluded Sif Aleph. We discussed how the count goes. We explained that although a person in general, provided he mentions the days, he's Yotze, if he just mentions the weeks, he's not Yotze. That which we say if he just mentions the weeks, he's not Yotze. That's if he mentions just the weeks on the day 7 or day 14 or day 21, where there's no mention at all of days. For example, on day 7, he said today's 1 week of the Omer. On the day 14, today's 2 weeks of the Omer. He's not mentioning the days at all, he's not Yotze. If on day 8 or 9, for example, on day 8, he would say today is 1 week and 1 day. He has mentioned days as well. He would be Yotze. And similarly, day 9, he says today is 1 week and 2 days, etc. He would be Yotze. He also said that in this Sif we saw that if a person, that there's really 3 times we counted the Omer. The most ideal time, the medaktikin, those who are careful, wait till nightfall. One can actually fulfill the mitzvah from Shkia, says the Shulchan Aruch, which is the Ben Hashmoshes period. And we'll see more about that also tomorrow, which is from sunset. One could say the Omer, but ideally one waits till nightfall. In fact, if you learn the Mishnah Brura, and we'll see more tomorrow, there were those who were lenient even from Plaga Mincha, which is even earlier than nightfall, to say that one can fulfill the mitzvah of the Omer. The Mishnah Brura says if a person thought it was already nightfall and he counted the Omer, in fact the Shulchan Aruch says, he counted the Omer because he thought it was nightfall and really it was only after Plaga Mincha, the thing is he has to count again with a bracha because his whole counting was based on a misunderstanding. And the way the Mishnah Brura puts it, how could you be Yotze with such a counting when he's counted actually the wrong day? As Hashem, we'll continue tomorrow with Seif Gimel.